exposed. The haunted rules of a lake patrol officer in Ohio discover the sinister secrets. The moon hung low over Maplewood, Ohio, casting an eerie glow on the still waters of the lake. Children are vanishing. The whispers echoed through the streets. The quaint town that Sarah Greene once adored now felt suffocating, as if the very air was thick with malevolent energy. With each step she took, the shadows seemed to stretch and twist, shadows of fear boiling beneath the surface. The annual lake festival was supposed to bring joy, but the giggles of children turned to hollow echoes that filled her with dread. She felt watched, hunted as Sarah patrolled the lake. Soft lights flickering from family homes seemed like distant stars, but they brought her no comfort. Families she had known since childhood retreated behind closed doors, their laughter fading into anxious murmurs. A mother pressed her young son close, her eyes wide and fearful. Sarah could feel their unease wrap around her, stifling and deepening the weight in her chest. What had happened to the carefree days of summer? The fun, the laughter, it all felt just out of reach, dangerously close to slipping away. The festival had come to an end, and with it the sinister undercurrent surfaced once again. Another child had vanished, none other than the son of her best friend, Jenna. The image of Jenna's face twisted with fear haunted Sarah as she scoured the lake, calling out the boy's name into the oppressive silence. And as her fellow officers shrugged off the disappearances, treating them as tragic coincidences, doubt twisted like a knife in her gut. The lake held secrets, dark ones. Suddenly, she stumbled onto a tree marked with strange symbols, carved into the bark like something out of an old horror flick. Panic surged in her chest. Were they some kind of warning? The woods felt alive, the rustling branches whispering secrets she wished she could ignore. She shook off her nerves, but the shadows grew deeper, more consuming. The stories of the ghostly boy who drowned in these waters long ago resurfaced in her mind, leaving her breathless with anxiety. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Determined, Sarah ventured closer to the water's edge, each step drawing her deeper into terror. The lake mirrored the storm brewing above, dark and angry. Gritting her teeth, she flicked on her flashlight, the beam cutting through the suffocating darkness. Was this it? Was the boy lost beneath those waves? The water churned as if something waited, a set of icy eyes lurking just below the surface. Then came the moment. A surge of cold grasped her ankle, dragging her down. Panic filled her lungs as murky water closed over her head, every instinct screaming to fight. What if it was the spirit? The vengeance? Desperation coursed through her as she clawed at the depths, searching for escape for breath. Just as her heart thundered in her chest, she broke free into the open air, gasping, but the taste of fear was thick. What had she uncovered? What else was the lake hiding? Secrets that could drown an entire community. As she stood, trembling in the shallows, she felt a presence lingering just out of sight. The town's trust was wavering, the weight of its buried past pressing down. Maplewood's dark secret was surfacing, and it would take everything Sarah had to confront what lay beneath. Sarah staggered back to the shore, rivulets of icy water cascading from her clothes. The night air bit sharply at her skin, and she frantically scanned the waters, searching for signs of movement. The unsettling feeling of being watched clawed at her again, an itch of paranoia that wouldn't be scratched away. She turned her flashlight back toward the tree with the strange symbols. What if they held some sort of significance? What if those marks were a warning? A dark chill slid down her spine. Desperate for clarity, she crept over, her heart pounding wildly. As the beam illuminated the carvings, she noticed the grotesquely deliberate shapes, a mix of spirals and jagged lines that twisted together like a nightmarish puzzle. This wasn't mere graffiti, it was intentional, it was malevolent. Suddenly, A low, mournful wail pierced the night, echoing from the center of the lake. It was a sound that sent shivers down her spine and froze her in place. She had heard it once before, the voice of the child who had drowned. Her breath hitched as she recalled the legend whispered in hushed tones, the tale of a boy lost to the depths, forever seeking something or someone. Hastily, Sarah tore herself away from the tree and made her way back to the patrol boat, anxiety quickening her steps. She fumbled beneath the seat for her radio, hands shaking. "Dispatch, this is Officer Greene. I need backup at the lake now." Her voice was firm, but the quaver betrayed her. The radio crackled with static, but no response came. Panic surged. What was she supposed to do? Alone on the shores of a cursed lake, the shards of unfolding dread sliced through her mind. She dug in her memory, searching for a rational explanation, but nothing came. All that filled the silence was that haunting wail. Maybe she should leave, but something inside felt rooted, as if the lake itself called to her. She couldn't shake the thought of little Charlie, her best friend's son, a child whose giggles had echoed in her home just days before. She couldn't abandon him. With a deep, shuddering breath, Sarah grabbed an oar and pushed the boat back into the water. The boat glided across the lake, the moon's silver light shimmering ominously on the surface. As she rowed, every ripple beneath the boat felt alive, a pulse that thrummed with a dangerous intent. "Charlie," she shouted into the darkness, her voice breaking the stillness that clung to the lake like bitter fog. "If you can hear me, I'm coming." Silence followed, but just as she thought maybe the boy was beyond reach, a flicker of movement caught her eye, a small silhouette drifting toward the surface. Heart racing, she leaned over the side of the boat. A hand emerged, small and pale, fingers outstretched like a plea. Panic raked through Sarah. "No, not now." Suddenly, the hollow laughter of children echoed from the depths. It wrapped around her like a noose, tightening her throat, drowning her resolve. The shadows deepened. She felt them now, clawing up her sides, encircling her limbs, tugging her down into suffocating terror. The lake was not merely a body of water. It was a graveyard, a trap, and she was its next victim. As she struggled against the pull, clawing for the oar, she felt the cold water swirl around her ankles again, dragging her back toward that ominous hand. In a moment of horrifying clarity, the boy's face flickered in her mind. Charlie's eyes, wide and desperate, a reflection of her own growing dread. She had to resist. She had to, but as she sank deeper, an overwhelming darkness closed in. What was real? What was the lake trying to say? Before she succumbed to the murky depths, the whispering winds carried a chilling promise. "Come play with us," the lake had claimed so many. Would she be next? The realization hit her like cold water. She was not alone. And in the distance, more laughter accompanied those echoes. Laughter that spoke of secrets long buried, waiting to rise again. What would happen if she surrendered? What awaited her if she let go? The moment Sarah plunged beneath the surface, shock gripped her heart. The water was frigid, enveloping her like a shroud. She twisted and turned, desperately fighting against the pull that relentlessly dragged her deeper into the abyss. For a heartbeat, she panicked, thrashing wildly. But the realization hit hard. Her oxygen was running out. With every inch she sank, the grip of terror tightened. Shadows danced around her, darting between her limbs like playful spirits. Were they truly children? Or were they something darker, remnants of those lost in the deep? The laughter echoed around her, haunting, mocking. "Come play with us," gasping for air. Her eyes darted to the surface, the light above shimmering as if it were a distant moon. A split-second decision surged through her. The oar. She reached blindly, fingers grazing the cool wood. But it slipped away, dragged into the cold depths by unseen hands. Fear thrummed through her veins. She was losing the fight. Forcing her body to calm, she kicked hard, propelling herself upward. The pressure around her threatened to crush her as darkness encroached further. With every ounce of strength, she shot towards the surface, breaking free of the cruel embrace just in time. Gasps of air filled her lungs, but the relief was short-lived. It felt as though nightfall had descended on the lake, a thick shroud of darkness swallowing her whole. Then she heard it again, the wail, now closer, desperate. Was it Charlie? Tears pricked at her eyes, mixing fear with horror at the thought of him lost in that abyss. Bleak regret enveloped her. She should have never come here. Charlie, she called out, voice raw, but the only response was the unrelenting laughter of children, their shrieks stronger, more sinister, coming from all around her. The mere sound twisted her stomach. It felt like they were circling her, taunting, daring her to join them. Suddenly, she sensed movement beside her. Panic reared up inside. Was it another hand? Or was it a monster waiting to drag her back beneath the waves? She turned sharply, flashlight in hand, its beams slicing through the darkness, revealing nothing but the lake's murky surface and rippling shadows. Then she spotted it, a figure, white as paper, gliding just below her, a small boy. The familiar outline, a perfect match for Charlie. Eyes wide, mouth silently screaming for help. Charlie! She screamed again, fighting the overwhelming tide of dread that gripped her heart like a vice. For an instant, he turned toward her, and those big, innocent eyes met hers. But the moment shattered as he went under, disappearing into the depths like a fallen star. The lake roared with laughter, drowning her cries, and the laughter grew louder, filling the air, wrapping around her like chains. Desperation clawed inside her. She couldn't let him go. Sarah kicked hard, pushing against the water, moving toward the last spot where he had been seen, determined to pull him back up. Her fingers grazed the cold water, grasping desperately, but only darkness enveloped her. She felt the icy fingers of the lake curling around her legs, pulling her down. Just when she thought all hope was lost, the surface of the lake erupted. Deep, haunting laughter burst forth, a cacophony of voices that swirled and rolled like thunder. It was as if the lake itself was alive, and it craved her surrender. At that deafening moment, she heard it, not Charlie's call, but the whisper of others lingering under the water, sharing secrets in a language she couldn't understand. How many had come before her? How many had played their final game? Heart pounding, she grabbed for the flashlight again, and then something caught her eye, a glimmer drifting through the dark, a simple object floating away. A small toy car. Charlie's car. The realization hit her like a stone. If she wanted to save him, she'd have to face what lay beneath. The ghosts were restless, and they weren't willing to let her go without a fight. She steeled herself, swallowing down dread. It was now or never, the choice to discover the truth of the lake or abandon Charlie to its depths forever. Around her, whispers rose higher, more insistent. Join us. If she didn't dive in again, would the whispers grow silent? Or would they only draw closer, forever haunting the edges of her mind? She had to choose. The lake awaited. Sarah's heart thundered against her ribs as she steadied herself on the surface. The laughter from the depths echoed in her ears, a jarring reminder of the urgency spiraling around her. She blinked away the sting of the water, fighting the chilling grip of hopelessness that tried to seep into her soul. Time was slipping away, and if Charlie was down there, a flicker of movement caught her eye. A shadow that darted beneath the water. She could still feel his presence, just out of reach, but somewhere within that suffocating darkness. Gulping air, she cursed the lake for its deceit. It was as if it were a predator, silent and patient, waiting for her to falter. Come on, she muttered, willing her trembling body to listen. The flashlight flickered, sending sparks of weak light through the opaque water. I will find you, Charlie. With every round of laughter that erupted from beneath, her resolve hardened. She had to dive again. She had to uncover the truth. The thrill of fear was a thick fog, wrapping around her like the cold tendrils of the lake. She forced herself to think, what did she really know about this cursed place? Taking a deep breath, she submerged once more, fingers slicing through the water. The darkness enveloped her with a vengeance, thick and oppressive. Panic threatened to claw its way back as shadows twisted and churned around her. She fought against it, propelling herself deeper, following the faint glimmer of a light that seemed to dance just beyond reach. Down below, The laughter morphed into a cacophony of cries, lost echoes of children, long ago silenced. Her mind whirled with the stories she had heard, whispered tales of a lake that never gave up its dead. She couldn't let Charlie join that chorus. Then she saw him again. There he was, Charlie's small form hovering just out of reach. His eyes were wide and terrified, mirroring the darkness swirling around him. "Mom!" he mouthed soundlessly, eyes pleading. Trapped in a world where gravity pulled and light faded, she swam toward him, arms outstretched. But as she neared, something clawed at her from above, unseen fingers thrusting her back. She felt her strength draining, her heart sputtering as the unseen horror shifted around her. She was being kept at bay, like a fish flailing against a net. "No!" The word came out as a choked scream, reverberating through the water. "I'm coming, Charlie." This was no game to her. The laughter no longer had its playful edge. It became an ominous warning, a cacophony of resentful spirits guarding their realm. Desperate, she kicked harder, but the pull of the lake intensified, a monstrous tide dragging her down into its gullet. All at once, the shadows surged, encircling her, closing in, taunting her with whispers that sliced through her mind. "Join us, we play forever." Then she caught another glimpse of familiar toy, the very car that had been in his hands when they last played together. It bobbed near his figure, almost beckoning to her, a radiating beacon of hope amidst the darkness. She could almost taste its weight, a reminder of innocence. Instinctively, she lunged for it. But as she reached out, cold hands pierced the murk, claws wrapping around her wrists, pulling her downward. The creature, whatever it was furious at her intrusion. The amusement of the spirits escalated to shrieks filled with rage. Adrenaline surged through her. She fought against their grip, desperation fueling her strength. With a shout, "Let him go!" she clawed her way through the cold bodies of shadows, focusing solely on Charlie. Just when she thought she would drown in despair, the flashlight flickered again, illuminating the faint outline of a pathway lined with glowing stones. The water rippled around it, and strangely, the laughter quieted, almost hesitant. Could it be a way out? Or was it another dead end? Another trap laid by the lake? Fear warred with a glimmer of hope in her heart as she took a deep breath, her brow knitted in determination. This path, this could lead to Charlie. But something told her the darkness craved her venture. What resided in the depths? A guardian? A monster? "Will you save him?" whispered an unseen voice, slithering through the water toward her. "Or lose yourself to the depths?" Determined, she moved toward the glowing path, feeling both dread and expectation swell within her. As she swam deeper, shadows danced behind her, weaving tighter around her body, coaxing her to turn back. What awaited in that flickering light? Would it lead to salvation or doom? The answers lurked at the bottom, concealed in tangled roots of the lake. Would she surface with Charlie, or would the lake claim her as one of its own? The glow of the stones pulsed like a heartbeat as Sarah pushed forward, their light cutting a narrow swath through the oppressive darkness. She thought of Charlie, trapped somewhere beyond the reach of her desperate grasp. Could she reach him before the lake swallowed her whole? Breath quickening, she maneuvered through the murky water, feeling the cold fingers of the lake wrapping around her legs, urging her to stop. She fought the urges that clawed at her sanity, pushing against the thickness of the water, the sensation of countless eyes watching her descent. A ripple surged nearby, sharp and unexpected. For a split second, she thought she saw a face among the shadows, ghostly features barely discernible, eyes wide with despair. It looked so familiar yet twisted by grief. Sarah shook her head. There was no time to lose focus. With every kick, the laughter waned, replaced by the solemn silence of an unseen observer. She reached the beginning of the stone path, careful but curious. Each stone radiated warmth against the frigid backdrop of despair, and her fingers brushed against them, sending a shiver through her arm. "Charlie!" she shouted. But the words were swallowed by the cold, dark expanse. The path twisted away from her, leading deeper into the heart of the lake. Shadows flitted past her peripheral vision, teasing and retreating, daring her to follow. And there it was again, the fleeting glimpse of a bright red toy car lapping against the edge of the glowing stones. It bobbed gently, beckoning her closer. Panic surged again. She pushed off the stones and chased after it, a wave of determination driving her. What was that voice in her head? Was it fear, or was it the lake laughing? "Join us, we play forever," echoed louder, a chant steeped in malice. Suddenly, the water split around her like a curtain being drawn back. She was no longer battling against the depths, but suspended in an eerie stillness. The darkness peeled away, revealing a glacial chamber beneath the lake walls shimmering with frozen tears and the flickering reflections of lost souls trapped in the ice. Gasping, she struggled to comprehend the terrible beauty surrounding her. Figures were enshrined within the ice, trapped in eternal poses of desperation and despair. Children reaching, mothers crying out, cries caught in a silent echo. Charlie could be among them. "Charlie!" She screamed again, darting her gaze from figure to figure. There was a shimmer of hope, a flicker of red close at hand. But the cold, that biting chill, seemed intent on stealing her breath away. She could not succumb here. She had fought too hard. With a surge of will, Sarah drove her arms forward, hurling herself toward the nearest figure, a small boy, barely visible, entombed in the ice. But as she reached him, ice crystallized under her fingertips, resisting her desperate touch. The laughter grew louder, deafening, drowning her voice in hysteria. No longer just voices of children. Now the laughter morphed into something deeper, more sinister. Just as suddenly as it began, the chaos froze. An overwhelming force ripped through Sarah's body, pulling her back, a dark, cold current seeking retribution for her intrusion. "No!" She kicked, her heart racing. She wasn't ready to join the damned, to become another wailing cry beneath the surface. Just as she thought she would be engulfed, her fingertips grazed the glowing stones again, igniting a fierce determination. They pulsed brighter, almost seeming to resonate with her desperation, and she felt warmth infusing her limbs. The voice whispered again, softer now, mirrored by a phantom presence emerging from the depths. "Which one do you choose?" It rasped, the tension thickening with every syllable, like a noose tightening around her throat as shadows closed in, pulling her from two sides. Sarah realized she had to make a choice, or perhaps lose them both. Would she sacrifice herself for Charlie, or seek her escape, betraying her very flesh and blood? The darkness loomed, hungry and palpable. As the pressure mounted, what would Sarah decide? Would her love be enough, or would the lake win this time? With dread creeping back into her heart, Sarah braced for what came next. Sarah's heart hammered against her ribs like a trapped animal. The shadows coiled tighter around her, pulsating with an insatiable hunger. Each flicker of their presence sent cold chills racing along her spine, reminding her she was not alone in this chilling abyss. The warmth from the stones seeped into her skin, a momentary comfort against the icy grip of the water. "Choose," the voice hissed again, each word a blade drawing closer to her throat. The choice loomed like a blackened cliff in front of her, stark and unyielding. She closed her eyes, visions of Charlie echoing in her mind. His laughter, his joy. Could she pull him from this hell? Burning in her heart was the single thought. Love, powerful and radiant. Just before she could answer the voice, a sharp pain zipped through her fingers. The ice had clawed back, its grip tightening like a predator sensing its prey. Panic surged. "Charlie!" She screamed, with desperation splintering her resolve. The figure of the boy flickered at the edge of her vision, distorted but achingly familiar. The laughter blended with the darkness, mocking her desperation. It twisted into twisted cries from those trapped in ice and haunted her with their sorrow. They all wanted her to stay, to join them. A sudden jolt filled her. The warmth from the stones ignited a defiance within her. "I won't leave you," she shouted, her voice finding clarity in the chaos. With renewed strength, she clawed her way toward the boy, resolving to fight against the invisible chains. But the pressure around her tightened, squeezing the air from her lungs. "Let me go!" Sarah gasped, tearing her gaze from the ephemeral figure. With every kick, every grasp, Something dark danced just beyond her reached the shadows, flitting closer, whispering promises of eternal peace. You have to give in. Come to us. They beckoned, their voices silk-smooth yet dripping with malicious intent. The red toy car loomed again in her mind, a beacon of their past, a symbol of everything she wanted to save. Was it a lure or a lifeline? The choice twisted painfully in her heart, filling her with a treacherous hope. If she could grab the car, maybe it would lead her to him. But as she fought, the darkness rippled, walls of icy, churning shadows erupting around her. She felt herself pulled, not only by the physical current of the lake but by the yearning it embodied. It promised her release, a way out from the gnawing despair of hope lost. You belong here, the whisper was almost sweet, a siren's call, intoxicating. It sent a wild shiver up her spine, a heady mix of terror and temptation. She could give up. She could join the whispers, become part of the mournful laughter that echoed off the ice. What was it worth? Her life for Charlie S? The voices of lost souls filled her mind, each claiming a piece of her resolve. Just listen, you could be free then. A chilling realization crashed into her. The lake was alive. It was sentient. The stillness was a trap, an elegant deception that toyed with her heart. The choice wasn't just about her or Charlie. It was life or a hollow eternity. I won't let you take us, she screamed, gut-wrenching defiance flooding her. She kicked harder, battling against the inexorable pull of the darkness. But the shadows answered with an enraged fury that swirled and wrapped around her limbs, fighting back with a coldness that threatened to extinguish her light entirely. Did I end that crucial moment? She had to act fast. With one last surge of determination, she dove deeper, reaching for the glimmer of the red toy. But what if she was wrong? What if the moment she reached for it, she would forever seal their fate to the depths of despair? The weight of her choice settled heavily on her shoulders as her fingers grazed the surface of the water, uncertainty gnawing at her core. What awaited Sarah on the other side of that choice? Would it be salvation, or the screams of the forsaken that echoed back to her? Sarah plunged into icy depths, desperation wreathing her in cold as she stretched for the toy car. Each flick of her fingers against the frosty surface sent stabs of pain coursing through her, but she couldn't turn back. The shadows encircled her, tightening their grip, but the red paint of the car was radiant in the abyss, a glowing promise among the desperate darkness. Come to us, the whispers coiled softly around her, venomous yet inviting. No, she screamed, her sound puncturing the serene dread that lingered like a thick fog. She pushed against the liquid stone, pulling herself closer to the glimmering beacon, even as its color flickered, threatening to fade, just like her hope. With a final lunge, her fingers scraped against the toy's hard surface. Relief flooded her, almost alien. But the instant she grasped it, the shadows shrieked, a cacophony of tortured voices wailing. They surged forward, blurring her vision with intensified darkness, and she felt a sickening twist at the heart of her hope. She attempted to pull the car back, her arms trembling with the weight of the darkness that wanted to drag her down. The moment the red distraction met her full grasp, the water erupted around her, sending a wave of cold that engulfed her like a plunge into a frozen hell. Then everything went still. She was submerged in an otherworldly quiet, the oppressive weight of the shadows hovering just beyond. In that strange silence, the world felt unreal, as if she was suspended between dimensions, between life and something worse. She opened her eyes, but the water was thick as syrup, murky shapes shifting in the distance, pulsating with a dark rhythm. The edges of her reality blurred. Suddenly, a chilling sensation rippled through her, a finger brushing her cheek, alive, and yet dead. Fear jolted her again. Was it a soul? Was it Charlie? Panic ignited as she clawed back, desperately seeking the surface, her lungs screaming for air. But the toy car slipped from her grip, spinning away from her grasp like a lost memory. Charlie, she barked, choking on water. The shadows hissed, eager laughter clawing at her heart. You can't save him, they howled, a dreadful symphony of mockery that twisted inside her chest. No, she cried, her voice rasping with grit. She shot towards the surface, but a powerful force dragged her down again, pulling her deeper into the dark maw of the lake. It felt impossibly vast, and she was losing herself within its chill. A slow suffocation that grinned back at her with insatiable glee. Her thoughts flickered like dying flames. Breathless echoes of Charlie's name twisted in her mind as visions invaded her, him laughing, running in the park, his tiny hands gripping that cursed red toy car. The memory felt fragile, desperately clinging to life. Please, let him go, she begged, not knowing whom she was asking. And then, just as hope seemed lost, a faint light pierced through the darkness. Not the haunted glow of despair, but something lighter, shimmering like warmth breaking through a winter storm. The shadows recoiled, half dragged away by the sudden brightness, like roaches scattering in sunlight. What is that? That light beckoned her, tugging at her spirit. Instinctively, Sarah reached out, the spark pulling her closer, inch by inch towards salvation. Felt charged with life, familiar, inviting. With a fierce resolve, she swam toward the sanctuary, her heart hammering both in fear and longing. But as the shadows shrieked in protest, she could sense their anger building, an impending rupture. Would she lose everything to the lake's insatiable hunger? The light's allure grew stronger, brighter. But was it a doorway to rescue, or a last trap? As Sarah surged forward, the darkness began to thrash, roaring beyond the constraints of the lake, enraged by her defiance. A monstrous wave rose behind her, fueled by anger, threatening to seal her fate once and for all. What awaited her at the light? Survival or annihilation? As Sarah lunged toward the light, every heartbeat felt like thunder in her ears. It surged brighter, begging her to come closer. But the shadows behind her roared, filling the icy void with a desperate anger. A billion cries merging into one deafening sound. The sensation of being pulled under grew stronger. Panic gripped her heart. The abyss was a thing of its own, and it didn't want to let her go. She shot toward the light, arms flailing, legs kicking like a panicked animal. The brightness danced just out of reach, flickering in a mocking way. Would it pull her in or lead her deeper into despair? Sarah wouldn't let the thought linger. She pushed forward with every ounce of strength left in her weary limbs. Then the cold hit her like a knife. The shadows lunged with renewed ferocity, wrapping around her defiantly, their tempers igniting in a total frenzy. They didn't want her to escape. They were claws and teeth, dark tendrils probing her skin, sinking into her soul. Sarah. A whisper came, mixed amidst the chaos. The voice faded in and out, like a bubble about to burst. Come, she fought desperately, instinctively moving toward the voice, believing it to be Charlie. I'm coming, she gasped, forcing herself to swim. The shadows screeched with laughter, a noise so alien it sank deep into her bones. She felt them tightening, compressing her spirit until it cracked. Then a hand gripped hers. A shock of warmth spread through her, illuminating the depths of her darkness. She blurted, "Charlie," but the voice was different, older, deeper. Flesh pressed against hers, a pulse of human life mixing against the icy void. Hold on. The grip was steady as ice met fire. Who are you? Panic twisted inside her as the figure pulled her but didn't let go. The shadows recoiled, hissing against their grip. Someone who's seen this before. You have to trust me. Trust? In this dark, suppressive hell? She had no choice but to follow their lead. The light glimmered more fiercely now, slicing through the murk that threatened to swallow her whole. Together they swam, clawing through darkness. The whispers grew, a savage choir taunting from the depths of the lake. You will never leave, you will never escape, no. She shouted with a defiance she didn't quite feel. Her heart raced, adrenaline pumping through her veins. She was close now, but doubt tore at her mind. Who was this person? What did they want? A sudden crash erupted around them as waves broke the surface of the lake with a force that felt like retribution. The shadows shrieked louder, the voice of the lake echoing in primal agony. It was as if she were straddling two futures, the light or the ravenous dark, poised to swallow her whole. Look, her companion shouted, and Sarah's pulse quickened. The shimmering light hovered nearer, alive like a swirling vortex promising sanctuary. But beneath, the darkness writhed, alive with intent. Go, go! Her hand was thrust forward, propelling her from the depths. If she could just reach it, but as she propelled toward the glow, something slashed at her feet. The cold pain shot through her, something sharp grasping at her ankles. Let go. You can't hold her, the stranger bellowed, desperation tinging their voice. With one final push, Sarah broke through the surface, breath rushing into her lungs like a tidal wave. She gasped, the light enveloping her like warmth on a winter day. But the shadows screamed in fury, clawing at the newfound space she took. She turned but saw the stranger still caught in the inferno of darkness. Save yourself, they shouted, disappearing back into the dark pit. Wait, Sarah cried, her heart shattered, tears mixing with the water streaming down her face. But what could she do? The struggle within the lake was over. But now, a new battle loomed ahead. Did she abandon a savior to confront whatever dark threat was now rising? Or could she dive back in to try and save them? With heart now racing, the decisions were heavy on her. The darkness still swirling beneath the pulse of something much larger and more sinister awaited her choices. What had they pulled her from? And what had they thrust her into? The lake's ominous presence lingered, and Sarah knew it wasn't done with her yet. The cold seeped back as echoes of the shadows intensified, whispering promises of dread and secrets that threatened to pull her back under. What had she truly awakened? What awaited her in the depths? Sarah found herself on the shore, the cold water cascading off her body like a curtain of ice. She lay gasping, mouth open, trying to suck in air that tasted like ash. The lake was a looming presence behind her, its surface flickering ominously beneath the dim, overcast sky. She was free, yes, but her heart still thudded loudly in her chest, echoing the desperate cries of the shadows that threatened to reclaim her. She pushed herself up, unsure of where to go or what to do. The woods surrounding the lake loomed with a suffocating whisper, the trees swaying as though they had secrets to share. In the distance, the winds carried faint echoes of laughter that sent chills racing down her spine. Shadows darted between the trunks, flickering just outside the corner of her vision. Charlie, she shouted into the emptiness, hoping against hope that he would answer, nagging doubt chasing her thoughts like a relentless predator's silence stretched out, the only response being the low rumble of the lake, as if it were mocking her desperation. She turned her focus back to the water, remembering the stranger-esque grip, the warmth that surged through her just before they vanished. But what had they really saved her from? And at what cost? Jogging along the bank, desperation clawed at her. Why hadn't she grabbed hold of the stranger and pulled them out too? What were they sacrificing to keep her safe? Were they even safe? The steady sound of the lake swelled up behind her, almost as if it felt entitled to the life it lost. Then she noticed a glint, something shining beneath the water. Squinting, she saw a glimpse of reflection just below the surface, murky but unmistakable. What could it be? With a pounding heart, she approached the edge, crouching low on the rocky shoreline. The shadows rippled hypnotically where the light glinted, playing tricks on her mind. The urge to dive back in surged through her veins like an electrical current. But caution held her back, screaming that she might not be able to return. Yet, instincts pushed her closer. Suddenly, a figure materialized not far off. She blinked in disbelief. A woman, dressed in what looked like old-fashioned swimming attire, stood knee-deep in the lake, her face obscured by dark hair that flowed like tendrils of the shadows themselves. With a calmness that made Sarah's skin crawl, the woman beckoned. "Come stay away from me," Sarah shouted, forcing herself to back away. Fear pulsed through her, a reminder of the claws that had once gripped her. But the woman smiled, an eerie expression that twisted her features, inviting yet terrifying. "You have so much more to discover." Her voice was graceful, but something about it felt off like echoing chimes tainted by screams. "Who are you?" Sarah managed to spit out, dread clawing its way up her throat. "I come from the depths, much like you." There was a shimmer in the woman's gaze that captivated and horrified. "We share a bond now, one that ties you to this very place." Just like him, his name. Charlie's name. The thought buzzed in her head like a swarm of locusts. With newfound resolve, Sarah took a step back. Where is he? What did you do to him? What was done is part of the lake's will. The woman's lips curled into a thin smile. You simply opened the door to a world that you cannot yet fathom. The trees rustled, snapping the tension. Sarah glanced back toward the woods, feeling a growing dread. It was as if the shadows were inching closer with every heartbeat. Let me help you, the woman cooed, stepping forward. You won't have to face the dark alone. Panic surged within her. She turned to flee, but an icy grip caught her arm. With a scream, Sarah spun around, expecting the shadows to snatch her back. Instead, a different figure loomed in the twilight, glistening to the heart of darkness. Sarah, the voice was familiar, trembling yet strong. Charlie? The shadows erupted as the realization washed over her. She wasn't just up against the malevolence of the lake. She was intertwined in it, caught in a battle against suspicions and ghosts now awakening all around her. What did you awaken? Came the croon of the woman, and a wave of shadows surged toward them. Run! Charlie yelled, but the lake hissed back at them both, dark tendrils reaching for their ankles. The escape was on, but what lay ahead twisted her gut. What horrors awaited them in the depths? Only one thing was clear. They had inadvertently opened Pandora's box, and now the entities were itching to return to the surface. What other secrets lay hidden beneath the glimmer of that dreadful light? Sarah's heart raced as she staggered back from the lake, the cold water rushing over her feet like angry fingers reaching for her. She pulled Charlie closer, his small body trembling against hers. We have to get away from here, now. The shadows loomed, drawing closer, thick like a storm ready to break. The woman from the depths whispered promises that twisted in the air, each word thick with ancient malice. Charlie, look away, she shouted, her voice cracking under the mounting dread. She felt him clutch her tighter, confusion and fear mixing in his expressive eyes. Yet the lake was relentless, its voice booming, echoing her deepest fears. You opened the door, it roared, and the darkness responded, a cascade of whispers wrapping around them. Help me! Charlie's voice broke through the cacophony. I can't, he stammered, fighting against the evil pulling him back. Panic clawed at her heart as she could feel it too, those cold tendrils trying to latch on. Together, Sarah gasped, casting a desperate gaze over her shoulder, battling the urge to surrender. They were bound by the same terror, a connection deeper than the water surrounding them. The pull was there, dark and unyielding, yet together, they could fight it. Hand in hand, they turned, facing the surging illusions of laughter and despair. The woman shrieked and raged. This is not your place. But Sarah refused to back down. For every ounce of strength the lake offered its shadows, she summoned the light inside her, fueled by love, determination, and raw parental instinct. We belong to each other, not to you, she declared. Silence fell. The shadows recoiled, almost hesitating, as if caught in the intensity of her words. The lake seemed to simmer beneath them, the laughter gathering force but unable to drown them out completely. They were not alone anymore. Sarah could feel it. Memories surged around her, images of joyful summer days, and the laughter they had shared. It was as if she was shining a light into the darkness. Let us run, she urged, pulling Charlie towards the line of trees just behind them. They sprinted, every ounce of energy fueling them as the shadows surged with rage at their defiance. But Sarah pushed forward, battling against every inch of fear clinging to her. The woods began to hum, resonating with her fear like a beating drum. Into the forest, she shouted as the whispers grew frantic, echoing the shadows that hissed and howled behind. The light from her memories guided them, illuminating a path as thick branches swayed, revealing safe passage, urging them forward, and then she saw it, the shining expanse of the old wooden bridge. It lay just ahead, leading away from the clutches of the lake and the horrors lying beneath. They dashed onto the bridge, its sturdy beams a barricade against the pulsing darkness behind them. With one glance back, Sarah saw the water churn violently, arched figures rising from its depths, reaching for them. "Don't look back," Charlie cried, tugging at her hand. "Hold on tightly," she instructed, eyes steady over the distant forest beyond the bridge. The shadows raced behind them, tendrils snapping like whips. "Trust in us." "Together," Sarah yelled, willing their resolve to bind them closer. They sprinted forward, every heartbeat becoming a mantra: defiance, determination, the promise of reunion. As they stumbled off the bridge and into the safety of the woods, the earth shifted beneath them. A deep rumble echoed. A fierce howl of the lake grew distant, melting into whispers of rage that receded back where they came from. The trees enveloped them, wrapping comfort around their trembling forms as, behind them, the bridge cracked under the weight of the shadows trying to escape, consuming themselves once more. "Are we safe?" Charlie's voice felt small, his innocent trust trembling with his words. "For now," Sarah whispered, holding him tight as the forest enveloped them, wildflowers blooming at their feet. They had escaped, but she knew the shadows lingered, waiting for their chance to reclaim what they believed was theirs. With newfound resolve, she gazed into the depths of the forest, her heart still pounding. "No more," she vowed, a fierce determination igniting in her chest. "They won't take anyone else. Not Charlie. Not anyone. Promise?" Charlie's eyes glimmered with unwavering faith. "I promise," Sarah swore, and with that, they turned upward, letting the sunlight spill over them, illuminating a path through the trees, as life started to befell them once again. But deep down in the murky depths of the lake, the laughter quieted, swirling with a resentment that would not easily die. Shadows danced beneath the surface, but Sarah's fierce love held the darkness back for now. It would take time, healing, and a renewed spirit. Maplewood had faced its monsters this night, but as long as there was love, hope would rise above even the deepest fears. Again, the darkness would wait. But for Sarah, she wouldn't let fear guide their destiny. They would forge a new path together. Leaving the burdens behind, the whispers stealthily slipped into the depths, biding their time for another moment, another chance. But Sarah was ready for anything, and just as the sun met the horizon, casting a warm embrace over her and Charlie, she knew the shadows could not touch them now. The lake had its secrets, but so did she. She took a deep breath, one of liberation from the weight of the world. "Onward," she declared, stepping forward with her son by her side, stepping into a brighter future that awaited them. Now that you've journeyed through Sarah and Charlie's story, it's time to keep the adventure alive. You need to subscribe now, so you don't miss the next exclusive stories that will take you on even odder journeys. Smash that like button now. Every click helps me reach new fans and keeps the dream alive. Flood the comments section with your thoughts, reactions, and theories about what might happen next. Your voice matters. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who you know need to experience this thrilling conclusion with you. Every action you take supports the channel and ensures you're part of this vibrant community growing every day. Thank you for being on this journey.